All right. So we are here and we're on updating, up, popping in for our update and saying our hellos um, to those who have interest in Joko Collective content. Hello, anyone and everyone who is checking us out at this time. And welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just going to be brief with you tonight, and we just wanted to say hello. Here we are. We're back, ready to get back into programming and bringing on marvelous guests and having great discussions. Um, Before we go any further, as we always do, acknowledge that we're doing this work for community and for the realization of a just world on the unceded lands of the Tongva people. Um, and we are self-aware people of African descent who understand how we entered in to this settler colonial scenario, and we keep it in the forefront. Okay, and so hello, Dr. Doucet.
Hello, good evening. And you handled it all, right? Both the greeting and the land acknowledgement. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got it. That's, we've been gone for a little while, right? We were talking before we went live, right? But, when was the last time Joko was up, right? Doing programming. And, I mean, we know even our internal meetings, right? We haven't been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of our busyness. So what was it? Maybe it was February, and we took all of March off and
Yep.
most of April, right? So almost a full 2 month
Mm-hmm.
hiatus. So that's why we're back, right? I mean, that's did think that maybe we should say something about that, right? About why folks haven't heard from us for a minute. Why there's why the gap in our the conversations we've been having with artists as we're coming to near the end of that series of discussions. Why we haven't why we skipped maybe now 2 months of hands off Uhuru updates.
Mm-hmm.
Because suddenly, that time just really kind of went, right? I can't believe, right? May starts next week,
Mm-hmm.
in less than a week. So anyway, that thought it'd be a good idea just to bring some folks up to date. And we've been busy, but we've been working on some dynamic things. And sometimes you have to cloister a little, right, to get some things accomplished. And
Tunnel vision.
yeah, yeah, it becomes necessary at a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you started, by calling me doctor, right? So that's
I
one of
surely
the things. That's right. Thank you. You're making me blush, right?
did.
And I'm still not quite used to hearing it, right? The,
Right.
but yeah, I was in that final push, whenever our last, public Joko event was that final push of completing the dissertation, getting forms in on time, getting things formatted correctly, um, getting it to my committee, all those things, right? Pre-defense meeting, the defense, right? All those things. In that last month, right? Because I was pushing for April 1st.
Yes.
My committee was like, take your time, April
Yes.
9th is so that an extra Dogon week, right, is what I got. Extra,
Right.
but it turned out to be fine, right? Turned out to be
Mhm,
perfect, right? They were like right
mhm.
on it. The but yeah, that was part of that tunnel vision, right? We just complete that project, cultural studies, PhD in cultural studies with Africana Studies certification. It was a long journey. It was
Yes.
worth it. And a point that you've made, a few times when I've commented on, dang, this is taking a long time. That
Mhm.
everything was kind of in time, right? And the work that I ended up doing, I wouldn't have done, earlier. I mean, if
Absolutely.
I'd have been on my original, my timeline,
Mhm.
when I forecasted, um, then the work that got done, a different story would have been told. And I'm glad I was able
Mhm.
to, tell
Yes.
that story, right? The Performing Arts
Yes.
Society of Los Angeles. So
Yes.
anyway.
Which, yeah, let's take a little minute to dig into that because I'm excited not
Mhm.
only as your partner in Joko and partner in life's walk, but excited as a community member for the work that you did, and excited as a community member who is excited about Black arts and particularly Black theater,
Mhm.
and a community member who has had more than just the passing brush with some of the Black theater spaces,
Mhm.
in LA coming up. And, just has really had a heart full of um, wanting to see a Black theater for, by, and about Black people for the purpose of, for revolutionary purposes, for radical purposes, for mind expanding purposes, for all of those kinds of things. So, all of that being said, please tell us about, or tell I know, please tell anybody else who's hanging out with us tonight about the dissertation work and what it meant to excavate the Performing Arts Society of Los Angeles.
There we go. Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you, because it's funny how things go, because I ended up. I mean, really, it was a look at the Black arts movement, right? And the Black arts movement here in Los Angeles. And when I started the program, right, when I was, first applying and took a trip, out to Claremont to meet with one of the professors, and get a little tour of Claremont and, talk to somebody else who was in the program. And, I mentioned that, part of my interest for the PhD work was, looking at the Black arts movement. But then once I started in the program and the reading and, got introduced to some other ideas, tried to get a sense of cultural studies and exactly what it is and what made it different, say from ethnic studies or, other, yeah, ethnic studies in particular. Um, I got further away from the Black arts movement as a topic
Mm-hmm.
and, I was thinking a little more around film narratives really and pop culture narratives but primarily film and the televisual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in the post civil rights, post black power period, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
thought about looking at that. The
Mm-hmm.
But then, through the course of life, right, as I met you,
Mm-hmm.
and through you met Baba Gita Hadi, and Nathaniel Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
and best known by most people for playing Rollo on Sanford and Son.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and through him, right, learned about Pasla, which I didn't know about, right? The
Mhm.
Performing Arts Society of Los Angeles, right? PASLA, that he was a member of for decades, and so many other folks, and well-known folks who passed through PASLA, and not so well-known folks, right, who passed through.
Mhm.
And his comments about the founder, Motojiko Van Tile Whitfield, and
Mhm.
so that seemed
Mhm.
like, okay, here's this organization, right, is a good subject for a PhD dissertation, right? And what was that
Mhm.
project? And particularly, I mean, one of the things I was interested in was, this very community centric, um, Afrocentric, liberatory, process through the arts, right? And, the performing arts. Um, and
Mhm.
here in Los Angeles, right, the entertainment capital of the world, right, as Los Angeles characterizes itself, and and a case can be made for that to
Mhm.
be true, and
Mhm.
indeed, right, it pumps out. It's like the major propaganda center, right, as far as popular culture is concerned. So
Mhm.
I thought about that, just being in that place, right, and
Yes.
working in these community spaces with liberation on the mind, and doing that type of work and engaging that type of material and producing that type of material, and also in the same space, right, and often um, with one foot in the entertainment industry that was so what's the word, complicit in the in the promotion of anti-blackness, right,
Mhm.
and lots of different televisual discourses, right, and cinematic discourses,
Mhm.
uh, whether narrative film, documentary film, the newsreels, over the years, um, the translation of the minstrel show aesthetic
Mhm. Mhm.
to the next, to electronic popular culture, right? And,
Mhm.
um, but then also, right, that industry also being forced to adjust to the pressure being put on it, by the civil rights movement,
Mhm.
other, movements for change, even those more radical than the civil rights movement. But that pressure was real, right? And, that tension was always there in some way. And so at the same time that the Performing Arts Society of Los Angeles and similar organizations are emerging in Los Angeles, the industry is also changing the terms of that representation, right? Might look at a turning point in the 1950s when, protests are able to get Amos and Andy taken off the air, right? You still got like Rochester, is
Mhm.
performing on the Jack Benny show.
Mhm.
Um, and this is not even to disparage like the talent of the individuals, right? I mean, so I write about it a little, but it's not even the main subject. But that's played out in like Nick Stewart, right? Nick Stewart's,
Mhm.
he's on Amos and Andy, right? But he's also founding the Ebony Showcase Theater because of representations like Amos and Andy, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's the generation before PASLA. And a
Mhm.
lot of the folks who were in PASLA also had some classes and start with Ebony Showcase Theater, right? And of course, and then again, these are community people, right? So I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the other aspect of it too. These are just folks in the community, and folks know about the Ebony Showcase Theater, and it's in the community, right?
Yes.
And Balboa Theater, right there on Vermont, all that time, which is why I was surprised that I wasn't aware of it growing up, thinking about how many times I've passed that theater not knowing its history, right? Around 2 years of high school catching the bus, so now I'm Vermont,
Mhm.
right, and I'm passing the
Mhm.
Balboa Theater, and by then they were already over here on 54th and Dean by then. but still, it's just the history of what was there, right? And
Mhm.
um, or even that it was over here, when we would be around here. So just not recognizing
Right.
some of this history,
Mhm.
and that yeah, I was thinking about that even in terms of Black August and the Martyrs tour, right? That all these
Mhm.
historical locations in Los
Yes.
Angeles, right?
Mhm.
Particularly Black historical locations that
Yes.
are otherwise unmarked, right? Or
Mhm.
unmemorialized except in
Mhm.
memory, and make
Mhm.
sure that memory passes down. So I
Mhm.
mean, that's kind of a nutshell of what the work is, right? Trying to who was the Performing Arts Society. Turns out they were completely connected with that artistic infrastructure that included other Black arts movement formations. They were working closely with the Pan African People's Orchestra, who was
Mm.
often providing music for their theater
Incredible.
productions. There was also a film workshop, so also providing musical score for the films.
Mhm.
They are connected
Mhm.
directly to the LA Rebellion
Mhm.
school through folks like
Mhm.
Larry Clark, Haile Garima, some of the performers in their films like Barbara O, Cora
Mhm.
Day.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know they were in a friendly partnership with organizations that weren't strictly Black arts movement, well, we're still part of that cultural movement of the time. So, like the Inner City Cultural Center,
Mhm.
I also, write a chapter on as a comparative model.
Mhm.
But the elders that were members, the past, the players, the veterans, always emphasized that there wasn't really a spirit of competition, but of collaboration.
Mhm.
And all these groups work together,
Mhm.
including working with the ICCC, the East West players. And again, I thought it was significant that one of the original board of advisors
Mhm.
for PASLA was the actor Mako, right, who became
Mhm.
famous in Sand Pebbles, right, the movie Sand Pebbles from the
Mhm.
1960s, but has since, right, continues to act,
Mhm.
but founded the East West Players at the same time, right, as this forum for Asian American
Right. Right.
expression, right,
Right. Mhm.
and was a member of the PASLA board. Um, Teatro Campesino, right? That I
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
generally is associated with like the farm movement and or farm workers
Mhm.
movement and
Right.
all, but
Right.
weren't just in the fields, right?
Right.
Performing and other experimental theater around town, right? That multiracial, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So just really part of a moment,
Right. Mhm.
and so in this very particular Black artistic space, this multi-ethnic, multicultural artistic space,
Mhm.
and industry space at the
Yeah.
same time, right? And
Mhm.
so that is what
Mhm.
the dissertation is looking at. Trying to
Mhm.
explore those contradictions. Look at and what is that to work in those contradictory spaces, especially as in the 70s, there's sort of a return of the minstrel show aesthetic,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
now with a different kind of tension.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that I think
Mhm.
still animates, a lot of Black popular culture. So,
Right, which I find also particularly interesting, just in terms of what you've talked about as a counterinsurgent, um, generating a counterinsurgent. Um, what is the language used? Video language. That's not video language. Is not what you have
oh, the
just said.
televisual,
Televisual,
yeah,
yeah, generating a counterinsurgent, um, um, televisual while, in response, because as you're talking and describing these, cooperative, um, multiple sites of cooperative growth along the same
Mhm.
lines, the same thought. I'm thinking, yes, and this is in parallel with ethnic studies movements,
That's
and
right.
this is in parallel with all other kinds of activism, and also in parallel with the whatever the new um, I don't want to use the word opportunity,
Mm.
but the new openings, to use a more neutral term, to participate in
Mhm.
the corporate life, and the a realization of an affirmative action piece, right? And
Mhm.
the system in this place of responding to these pressures, as you're saying, the industry is having to make space
Right.
for this discourse, but within a decade is looking at how to respond and reshape that discourse,
Yeah.
and to what is the word? Begin to excommunicate the revolutionary in the visual sphere,
Yes.
in the uh, in the iconography, you know.
Mhm.
And just how kind of potent and powerful that is, again, the importance of that documentation and that importance of the memorialization, and of course, as I always say it, because I always feel it anytime we talk about this work of yours, so looking forward to how it translates into popular awareness, and becomes something that people read, and also something that you're going places and talking about, in terms of how we also begin to rekindle. Everybody's been looking forward to, what's happening with the Vision Theater, when is the Vision Theater going to open, what's going
Right.
on with the Vision Theater, I think in a great anticipation in the
Mhm.
ongoing from the community, what's going to happen with this theater space, but just the work also that your work can do in rekindling that interest
Mm.
in what we are producing in that area, um and probably another ripe site for a takeoff, with that, is in the ever vibrant spoken word
Mhm.
world, the
Yes.
community, which is alive and popping, and also full of
Mhm.
people who are not only spoken word artists, but who are theatrical
Exactly.
artists, So anyway, just really excited for um a new conversation to come into the community about, hey, how do we want recapture that,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, built that these
Yeah.
institutions,
And
whether at
poetry was a big part of, like Pasla's work, right? And if you remember the Pasla veterans saying, talking about how Van Tile, taught
Mhm,
them to recite poetry, right? And, what it
mhm,
should actually sound like in performance, right?
mhm. Right, 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 right. All of this, all this kind of coming together, and the receiving of grants notwithstanding, that will
Mhm.
be for somebody, for some ears or palates, too bitter a contradiction
Yeah.
to take in. But not for this palette. It didn't seem to
Yeah.
interrupt the radical trajectory of the work, nor interrupt that kind of there's a better word than ownership, but you know that ownership,
But that communal ownership.
that
Yeah.
communal, yeah, still this, as a product of the Black community,
Mhm.
you know
Right.
um,
Yes.
and still self-generated, you know
Yes. Well,
not.
and on that point, I, at least propose, that we need to think differently about that. Um, that's, certainly, each individual organization that might be seeking grants, needs to do so with integrity, right? And, without compromise, right? As they see it. But also that, public money is the people's money, right? So you're getting your own money back. You pay taxes, I mean, and for a good purpose, right?
Mhm.
And again, right, you don't have to agree to any particular conditions. And indeed, I take the attitude we need to be laying down conditions, right, rather than accepting conditions, or do what Donna did in our experience with the city of Inglewood and the Ing project, where she was like, well, fine, right, if you can't deal with what we're doing, we can start doing whatever legal process is necessary to break the contract, whatever, right? And because we aren't going to compromise what we're doing, and this is what you
Yeah.
signed on for if you didn't realize that, right?
Yeah.
And if you took the time to actually read it, you would know that was the case. The Because otherwise, that is public money, and we are the public, right?
Mhm.
And so bring that money, get that money back to the people, rather than to
Mhm.
the arms corporations.
Mhm.
And then I feel that the same way with a lot of foundation money. I mean, whereas who's creating that wealth that they are now doling out, right, with largesse, or whatever, or what is it, noblesse oblige, whatever
Mhm.
attitude they may have. But the fact
Mhm.
is, the people created that wealth, right?
Right.
And again,
Right.
whatever hoops they're requiring to get your money
Mhm.
back. Again, I think individual organizations need to have the integrity, right, to not accept conditions that are unacceptable, right? And okay, fine, but there's another foundation out there, right, that isn't going to demand that. And just the point you made, right, with the foundation money they received,
Mhm.
they were able to produce some revolutionary work, right, give some people in the community skills, right,
Yes.
through a partnership with a local mainstream media organization, right? Channel 11 at the time, right? KTTV Channel 11, Metro Media,
Mm.
um, news, not even just news, right? Metro Media. They
Mhm.
were able, 2 years of a daily morning news and views program from the Black and working class community of Los Angeles daily.
Mm.
And Van Tile Whitfield was on record as saying, we don't just intend to reach only our community, though they're our primary audience. We
Mhm.
also know lots of white women are going to be watching in the morning, right? And so
Mhm.
there's something for them to learn too. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
anyway,
Mhm.
yeah, I think we got to think differently about where that money's coming from, right? They ain't giving us nothing, right? It's money.
Right.
We have produced the money, right? And I mean, if you're going to, pay taxes, and everybody pays taxes, that other, lie that some people don't pay taxes. Every time you buy something, you pay taxes unless you're buying it under the table.
Right.
So, I mean, everybody
Right.
pays tax. Every time you pay your bills, you pay
Right.
you pay the tax, right? So forget that,
Yes.
certain people don't pay taxes is more than just income taxes, right? So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
it's the people's money. Use it with integrity, right, for the people. And the arts is again, I just, in the dissertation, as an example, I only share what Van Tile Whitfield was able to, share in terms of funding just in
Mhm.
his first year, or anticipated, right, first year, working for the Arts Extension Program, right, of the National Endowment for the Arts.
Mm.
And the folks who are getting it, right,
Mhm.
several Native American community arts program, poor working class white folks in the Appalachians, trying to put together a theater program,
Mhm.
folks in various rural areas,
Mhm.
um, you know, urban areas, but working class folks, right? And that taking that money that would otherwise be going to
Mm.
you know subsidize at the time still the war in Vietnam, right, or
Right.
some other such nonsense, right? Research and development of some other toxic something, right?
Some other
So
something. I like
So,
that. Research and development for some other toxic something.
or other, right?
Yes,
So,
or other.
so and it's still starved, right? Just in terms of what's made available. So yeah, but I know that was an issue, certainly an issue at the time, and maybe still an issue for some people about what funding should organizations accept. And I
Mhm,
understand that, and I understand why, but I also think there are other ways of thinking about that and approaching that, and managing that in terms of demands that might be made, right? And when you got to cut ties with some, certain funders.
mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just say once again, thank you for the work. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
even the joy that was apparent at your oral defense meeting. It was just a joyful conversation for everyone. It was
Yes.
not this kind of rigid academic-y, um, dry, you know.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Was,
Yeah,
it just had a certain vitality to it,
yeah,
a certain life, to it, and so, again, I just am so looking forward to the fruits,
yeah,
looking
yes.
forward
Of
to the
course, since
fruit.
then, I haven't done like hardly anything with it, and been
Right.
hard to even think after the push, right? And
Yeah.
trying to catch up on my teacher work, right? And get
Yeah.
some feedback back to students and all that, especially for a writing class, so
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
classes and all that, right? But it was a good month. It was an interesting month. I was, so preoccupied. I barely noticed that Mercury was in retrograde, even though retrograde things were happening. I, and then once it was done, it didn't matter what happened. So those few little things that are happening that just, but nothing, no major,
Right.
retrograde things, just running into traffic when you don't expect it and stuff like
Right. Mercury be staying in
that. There was
retrograde.
there was a blackout in the
Uh-huh.
department. What, last week in our building there was a
Okay.
blackout right as I got there too. There was a blackout,
Yes.
but then our classroom was on the sunny side of the building, so we had natural light.
Yeah.
And then before I could even say, well, we're gonna try it with natural light, the lights came back
Yeah.
on. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, right?
Right, right, right.
So
Okay. So
retrograding ain't been too retrograde this
right.
particular April. It's been a big April. Besides finishing the
Yeah.
dissertation work, defending the dissertation, all that. Hearing Eve say, "Now you can call yourself doctor." Great, right?
Yes.
I happily was, had my second collection of poetry published on the 1st of
Yeah.
April.
Yes.
So April has been a very good month. Um,
Yes.
but I'm not the only one, working
Output
on
and
poetry.
plateaus. Yep, you're not the only one working on poetry. Yeah, I've
Right.
had the pleasure of participating in the Community Literature Initiative, um, on Florence, based at a Sims Library, of poetry, on Florence Avenue in the heart of our community. It's now, what, an 11-year project?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was season 11. It's, now
Mm-hmm.
an 11-year project, and it, boasts at this point, the Sims Library of Poetry, can boast being the largest, collection of poetry, I think, in the state, um, in terms of a space exclusively dedicated
Dedicated to poetry.
to
Yes.
poetry, a space of its kind. And, that has been, for me, a 2-year process, and a incredible process, and an incredible process on every level, in terms of, um, finding an artistic voice, in terms of going into the process, as so many, many people do. You hear it, in these circles all the time. People are going to, work on spirit in there, which we always love in,
Mm-hmm.
in in our discussions of the arts, we always include that um, uh, very earthed Afro spirituality
Yeah.
element, that when we engage in creating in these kinds of products, we're engaging in different aspects of our um, our invisible nature, our of our spirit, and it has absolutely been um, a transformative journey for me, and it's been such a pleasure to watch my comrades in the poetry community, to see them have these kinds of transformations, and just to be in
Mm-hmm.
this environment of
Mm-hmm.
working on craft and growth. And I've been as turned on about having again a a space dedicated to um a community arts space, a
Mm-hmm.
dedicated community arts space where people of color are primarily, it is not exclusively Black and Brown people, um, but it is primarily Black and Brown people. And it is this, this place, where we have, the opportunity to come and develop a skill, a craft, you know what I'm saying, to do what we come here to do as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so that's always that's at least half the pleasure of participating. And
Mm-hmm.
so yes, we are, and I am currently in the book production process, and um, our manuscripts are being transformed into proofs, right, of books, actual books that we will hold up in June and say, "This is my book of poetry." Right, this is my poetry collection,
Yes.
and then try to get someone to publish it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, "Hey, I
Mm-hmm.
want to publish my poetry." You know, um, but I can absolutely attest that that is some icing on the cake. I mean, people are there from all walks, and it's grown so much, okay, of course, and expanded so much over the years that now it is a site. People are looking for CLI as the place to come in
Mm-hmm.
and do some publishing. People at all levels. You, of course, publish with Community Literature Initiative and World
World
Stage
Stage Press.
Press, right?
Right. World
With
Stage Press.
Hiram, and I have
Yep.
not said Hiram Sims' name.
Mm-hmm.
With yes,
Sims
Hiram and
Library of Poetry. Yes.
Hiram and Cherie Sims
Yep.
created this space, and the so people who have been, writing forever and are professors of literature, and
Mm-hmm.
people, Sister has a poem, Sister My Joy, one of my favorite community poets, and she has a poem, one of the lines of which is, I'm writing for the sister on the pole. I'm writing for, the brother who's, working out a Jones on the corner. I'm writing for,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And um, coming from, just coming right from where we are to, you know, to make this art. And one of the things that I also love about the writing arts and the poetry art is all you need is it's very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
All you
Mm-hmm.
need ultimately is a piece of paper, a napkin, and a
And you're
pencil.
right, Rick.
Oh,
That's
let me
it.
write that down. You help me jot
That's
that
it.
down. Paper and pencil,
Paper
and
and pencil.
empowering so many people, and working us.
Sometimes just cement and a nail. Right.
See, I love it.
You can make it work. It'll take some
Right,
time, but you can make it work, right?
right, absolutely, absolutely. So yes, indeed. Looking forward to that, and it has been a lovely process. Um, And we've got some updates, right? In terms of
Yes.
you
Well,
wanted to.
before we go to those updates, I just wanted to say that one of the things that I just so appreciate and love about CLI
Yeah.
is that end product, right? That they're focused on producing published writers in the community
Mhm.
who can then go out and share that work, particularly in schools, right? And to let young people, particularly young people of color, know, yeah, you too, you got a voice that you can express, you can get published, right?
Yes.
You can do this, right? So that's one of my
Yes.
favorite things about it, right? Is that they are focused on getting people, as you said, from all walks of living, right? Published, right? You got a voice, you got something to say, and they're, one of their latest projects, the children's literature workshop. I'm just, very
Yes.
excited about them doing that, right? And so,
Incredible.
right,
People are writing incredible children's books. Just dynamic. It is just
yeah.
that has been marvelous. Yes.
Yes. So
Mhm.
yes, props to CLI,
Mhm.
props to Sims Library of Poetry, Hiram and
Mhm.
Sharice, and always props to the World Stage and World Stage Press,
Always.
right? And
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes,
yeah,
indeed. Right. So,
yes.
yeah. So anybody who is tuning in or who might um tune in and see what this was about later on the recording, we are looking forward in May to picking up sticks and going forward with our hands off of who update, a proper uh, second Saturday Joko. Um, uh, in June, we project to wrap up our Art in the World We Want series with conversation with local musicians about music. Well, yeah, talk to musicians about music
Yes.
of a few different genres, and look forward to digging into that. And what else have we got coming up?
Where we want to start a new series of conversations, some social education, political education, legal education, talking to members of the coalitions with which we work, the Black is Back Coalition and the Fight Back Coalition,
Mhm.
as folks are facing this new kind of repression of dissent. Folks are calling it the new McCarthyism, and that
Yes,
seems to be coming from both right and left, right? And
yes.
in this current political situation in
Hmm.
the country.
Hmm.
Um, so that's we're looking to do that. Um, I know you mentioned, and we're a lot. These things are still in construction and conversation. But I
Hmm.
know at some point, we want to um, commemorate and reflect on that community tribunal,
Yes.
um, when the community had to deal with, a toxic presence, particularly in the revolutionary, liberation-minded
Hmm.
part of the community,
Hmm.
um, and other things, right?
Yeah.
We want to uh, start again our regular conversations with the good doctor. Um,
Yes, Dr. Simmons.
Thank you, Glenn
Yes,
Simmons. Yes.
Dr. Glenn Simmons.
Um,
Yes.
so these are things coming up, right? And
Mhm.
um, we still have one member who's still on hiatus, who we hoping to be checking on soon, and getting some updates, and especially as we have a chance to get into now some of the things, some of the directions that she was pointing us in terms of conversations around healing and dealing
Mhm.
with grief, as we
Yes.
Black people in this world, let alone this country,
Yes.
right, have to deal with grief so much, right? So, we're
Yes.
forecasting, a lot, right? But these are things coming down the pike for Joko.
Yes, and looking forward, really looking forward. Energies are up. We're inspired, and there's a lot to help mediate, right? A
Yes.
lot for us to um, assist in this push for mediating some accurate stuff
Mm-hmm.
and some context developing stuff, um, and just be a part of that process of advance, that
Yes.
process of advancing uh, true progressive principles, um, onward until it's one, you
That's
know,
right. Until it's one.
until it's one. Absolutely.
Yes.
And do we actually have anything else? What else have we
Well,
got? We wanted to
not
say.
really. It's just going to say that's why we've been dark, right? Why Joko hasn't, you know, done anything, right, for the last nearly 2 months.
Mhm,
Working on these projects primarily.
mhm.
Tasha's, the work you're putting together. Really looking forward to it. Um, in June, right? Being completely sort of done, and um, I think it's wonderful. And yes,
Thank you so
whatever happens
mhm.
with, well, the idea is, the dissertation hopefully will, as we talked about, become, a book, right? Not just a dissertation, but continue become a book. And I have notions of, a documentary film also at some point, right? This is something that can be,
Absolutely.
do
Yes.
the film festival circuit, certainly Pan African Film Festival, and things like PBS, brought to you by your tax dollars and corporate
Right
funding,
on.
right?
Right
The
on.
But also, a shameless plug, but
Mhm.
also a plug for the publisher, right? So
Yes.
first of all, nothing but love for the World Stage Press,
Yes.
who published Black Dot Clubhouse.
Yes.
So still available at worldstagepress.org. But because of that book, right, the publisher of my second collection read, um, Black Dot Clubhouse, and wanted. It was like, I really like this. I want to publish you. So when I think about the current publication, it's there because of Black Dot Clubhouse, right? And
Right
uh,
on. Right
so
on.
nothing but love, right, for Black Dot Clubhouse and the World Stage Press, worldstagepress.org. However, the new collection that just made available April 1st is An Open Mouth, title of the collection. And it can be found at www.atoponbooks.com.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It is,
Say it
exactly.
again.
I'm going to spell it again.
I'm gonna put it in the comments. Go ahead. Mhm. 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 Mhm.
ATOPONBOOKS
B as in boy. Yes.
dot
Books.
com.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
Atopon Books,
all right.
or Atopin. No, it should
Okay.
be Atopon Books.
Okay.
It's a Greek word meaning without place. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. An Open Mouth is available there, right? Atopon Books, or atopenbooks.com.
Marvelous.
Um, that is it, right?
That is
We'll be back probably in just like a couple of weeks or so with our
mhm.
regular Joko programming, or at least that's what we're projecting. As we're waiting to get confirmation.
Nations from folks. Yeah.
We'll definitely be back with Hands Off Uhuru. What, the third Thursday,
Fourth.
the fourth
Fourth
Thursday of
Thursday in
May,
May.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a for sure.
Yes.
And we're also hoping to at least be back with our first guest for the the catching up with coalitions conversation too. But again, those that's still being confirmed also.
Yes, all of that. Um, and very good. And so if we can end with also Joko's direct statement of solidarity, um, sympathy, familyhood, siblinghood with the people of Palestine um, in their heroic, I don't know if there are words to describe,
Yeah.
um, but in their heroic um, saga, engagement, um, undaunted,
Hmm. Yeah.
unbowed, just an example of
Exactly.
yes, with
Inspiring resistance everywhere, right?
everywhere.
Under those conditions, right? And things are, they're being so vicious. The oppressors are being so vicious in Gaza that people almost don't realize what's happening in the West Bank
Right,
and in that part of
right.
occupied Palestine, that's legally the state of Israel, that has a bunch of Palestinian citizens in it, right? And they're almost invisible in this. Um, so yes, free Palestine.
Free Palestine and all of our people who are being put upon by the gangland powers of the world, gangland state powers
That's right.
of
Yes.
the world, um, and are undaunted in vision and in resistance. Um, we speak to our people in Haiti who are needing to
Yes.
resist yet again, resist in some more.
Hmm.
A continuous stream, a continuous stream,
A continuous stream.
and another,
And they continue to resist.
and they continue
Unbowed, as you
yes,
said. Yeah.
unbowed, unbowed. Um,
Spirit of
down,
Dessalines lives.
absolutely, absolutely, and let it always be uh, a profound encouragement. May we remember our successful
Yes, that's
resistance.
right.
May we remember that these so many of these spaces that are tourist attractions in some of the islands are
That's right.
Maroon communities,
That's right.
right? From these ancient. Uh, I use the term ancient loosely, right?
Yeah.
But these the maroon communities of yesteryear that were
Hmm.
impenetrable, you know.
Hmm.
So um, we can, you know, um, make truth flowers sprout
That's
in a
right.
desert of lies,
That's
in
right.
a desert of
Yeah.
lies, and
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
right on.
Love it. Yes. Absolutely.
And if we are now then finished with our um, what we came here to do, on
Yeah.
that note, I would like to read a piece um, by the brother Mahmoud Darwish,
Yes.
To Our Land. To our land, and it is the one near the word of God, a ceiling of clouds. To our land, and it is the one far from the adjectives of nouns, the map of absence. To our land, and it is the one tiny as a sesame seed, a heavenly horizon, and a hidden chasm. to our land. And it is the one poor as a grouse's wings, holy books, and an identity wound. To our land, and it is the one surrounded with torn hills, the ambush of a new past. To our land, and it is a prize of war, the freedom to die from longing and burning. And our land, in its bloodied night, is a jewel that glimmers for the far upon the far and illuminates what's outside it. As for us inside, we suffocate more. Mahmoud Darwish, To Our Land. Yes.
The great Palestinian poet. Yes. That was right on time. Yes.
Yes, right on with the right on. And
Right on
so
with the right on.
we humbly give ourselves to this work.
Yes.
All right.
So that's our update.
That's
That's
it.
our Joko update, folks. We will see you soon, probably within a few weeks, with some more Joko programming, as my major project has come to an end, at least that part of it, which was taking my time. And Tasha's is making its way to its end, right? The
Mhm.
most time consuming part of it is more or less over. Right? So,
Yes.
all right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.